StereoKit is for C# developers, especially those that don't have a lot of mixed reality experience. I really designed StereoKit to be very easy to learn. So I always imagine, what if I was teaching this to students? What would they think of this API? How difficult would it be for them to learn? But at the same time, it's also a very powerful API as well. So while it's easy to learn, it's also very expressive. So the idea is if you're a C# developer from enterprise or not from necessarily game development or anything like that, you can just dive into this, learn it really easily, and start getting productive really fast. So it also helps to, because of the iteration time that StereoKit has, it's very fast to just go through, try things, experiment a little bit. So it's also really good for rapid prototyping and iterating on your designs. So hopefully StereoKit is for everybody, but I focus mostly on these people who don't necessarily have experience with mixed reality before.
Hello, I hope that you're having an amazing day today. Today I'm going to be speaking about best tools for XR design. So whether you are a developer looking for some insight onto designing for 3D immersive environments, or if you are a creator, an artist, trying to use these design strategies, or even a designer, a normal traditional designer of UX, UI designer, this is a presentation that will be valuable for you, because today I'm going to be speaking about these relevant tools that can help you to streamline the process, therefore making it more efficient. So, my name is Diana OLYNICK. I am the founder of M4 Method. I am an engineer by profession. I'm the studio director, and M4 Method is all dedicated to XR design, business consulting, as well as the creation of virtual environments. Currently, where I live here in Canada, I am also a business mentor for Futurepreneur Canada, as well as for North Forge, which is an incubator for startups. And I feel very grateful of having those roles and collaborating in the community. As part of the Association of Engineers, Geoscientists Manitoba as well, I am part of role as mentor for women in engineering, where I like to encourage and help women, giving them further support in their careers for their profession. And yeah, I like to collaborate in all of these spaces and with tips and knowledge and resources, because I have an approach to life that is abundant and that I like to share everything that I know. I know that when we have this type of perspective, of course, it always pays back somehow. So yeah, this is who I am. I'm very excited to be here. I have this very deep interest in business and education. I don't come directly from a background in gaming, so these are insights that I have gathered over the years, and also with my studies in XR design and XR development, and I'm very glad to share this with you. So we're going to be speaking about some crucial points today, and they are related with what is XR design. What is this term that maybe is not very commonly discussed or very mainstream right now? I go to see the post sometimes and I don't see many jobs with this type of title. And with that, we can realize that this is still part of how the industry as a whole is evolving. And I feel very glad to be sharing these initial insights. It's not brand new by any means, because these have had years of research, but we don't see like millions of people necessarily all around the world using the term. So that's why it's very important to start with the basics, which is what is XR design, and then branching onto what is that type of XR design workflow that we are going to be applying these tools onto. And finally, what are these type of methods, techniques, etc., tools that are helpful for our work as creators, developers, designers, etc. So let's start with what is XR design. So basically, XR design is now a way where we can express in somehow this physical world, the real world, but now in a digital world. So typically in design, we used to have a perspective of third person interacting with a 2D screen when we were speaking about digital products. And now what is happening with XR design is that it's changing the way, and now we're shifting the perspective from a third person to a first person, meaning that before we used to have like a wall of separation between the way that we interact with these 2D screens, but now we are actually being immersed like inside this experience, website, etc., and we are able to interact with those objects that were before digital and just being manipulated through screens. Now we can have the sense of reaching out to them and can have the sense of space, meaning like depth. So this is what is linking, especially is actually linking as we move in this world, as we navigate, as we interact, as we approach, and the way that we perceive and the sense of the space. So this is what is thinking, especially is just as how we think in this physical world, but now inside the digital world. So designing this space, of course, is just more than 2 dimensions. Now we're adding depth, and that's what makes a couple of changes as part of the design. Now the space is the canvas. I remember using an app that is called Tilt Brush and also Open Brush, and I was fascinated. I remember the first time that I was using these apps, because it was amazing to see that typically we have this relationship with a brush and just with the paper, and we'd be painting, and we could see sometimes some restrictions with that painting, although it's absolutely beautiful and it's never gonna be replaced. But in the space we were able to just not only represent in 2D now, but see the depth of a stroke, for example, which is fascinating, and also being able to create characters, dresses, etc., in a 3D space is a very interesting experience. And for an artist or for creators, it is absolutely the canvas, and now it can be done in virtual reality or in this type of apps where we can directly model in 3D and experience it in all senses, in all ways, in terms of the 3D space. So what would be this if we don't discuss about UX, this is important because we need to see how this evolution has happened and why we're speaking about the space anyways, and why is that these tools now are gonna make sense. So we begin here in the 4000 before common era with Feng Shui and the importance of space. I really have a very deep connection with the Japanese culture. I feel that in terms of design, it has brought a lot of richness and a lot of actually mindfulness, actually awareness into design, in fact. And it all began with being able to reconsider what things are important around the space, what things are functional, and how these elements, objects, etc., everything that we see around our world actually affect us in certain ways, and how we can evolve these ways, how we consider space and interact in the space. And then in the 500 BC, we see the ancient Greeks with ergonomics. I think ergonomics, because I come from a background in engineering, is a very, very important topic nowadays, and especially speaking about 3D design and 3D development, because when we are in a digital space, some of the risks and related movements that we make in the real world can affect us. For example, if we are wearing a headset for more than 8 hours and we have been in awkward positions because of the design of the app, that can actually affect the health of the person. And so ergonomics can also influence long-term disabilities, injuries, all of this. So it's very important, not only in engineering also, but also in design. And in the early 900s, we saw Frederick Winslow Taylor and the quest for workplace efficiency. So coming from this industrial revolution and all of these labor theories and this different approach of production, massive production and series of products being delivered, then is that when we see the studies begin to arise about how can we make the processes more efficient, how can we make actually a measurement of productivity, and how can we optimize the capacity of plants for work, like I mean industrial production. And then Toyota, that also has a background from Japan, comes with the value of human input, where now it's we come from all of these labor type of considerations with work, but now we come to analyze more what is the human aspect in this analysis that we are making of efficiencies and optimizations. So now it is a little bit more advanced in the sense that humans now again come into the consideration of how we can make spaces safer and better, because before, during the heavy labor times, many people die because of this, for example, or contracted many illnesses because of this. So then now it entered into the consideration. And we have also Henry Dreyfus and the Art of Designing for People in 1955, where now we can see more even in architecture, and where the space is more considered, and it's not only the person as in the 40s, but also how is the relationship with the space. Then in the 1966, we see Walt Disney with the first UX designer. We see this concept of Imagineering, where there is more creation of experiences and what people is feeling and how we can intersect emotion and all of these in experiences. In the 70s, we see Xerox, Apple, and the PC era, where, of course, the computers take the actual attention. And we begin to interact more strongly with 2D interfaces. And because of the dependence of the device, those were the ways that first we had to interact with this type of machines. But later on, we're going to realize how this can be reconsidered, even though right now we're still using typical user interfaces. And then 1995, Donald Norman gives UX design a name, so user experience, and how this person, user, actually I don't like to use the word user, but because it's common, I'll continue referring it in this presentation, but how this person actually gets safety opportunities to interact with the objects and the products and all of these aspects. His book is highly recommended because of the analyses that are done in terms of design and how poor design come to be and how can we avoid this. Then we do a jump again, and we come here to this era where we have the design of 2D apps and this device that also came to replace a little bit of the activities that have been done with also computers, because now we are able to use this device for many of the tasks that before we were not able to do. Therefore, we created even a more bigger dependency in these type of devices. And in these 2D apps, we can see ourselves swiping during the day and learning without even having to realize how all of this happened, but learning to navigate, to find stuff quickly, to explore content, etc., through this device and what is called 2D apps. A little bit fast forward, we now are starting to see these opportunities with 3D experiences, where we have now here the comparison. If we wanted to get, for example, access to a meditation app, before we had to get the phone and download the app and start learning how to navigate through the app, swiping, etc., getting the meditation, and then getting in place and imagining how that could be if it's a guided meditation, exploring something or using imagination for that. But now with 3D experiences, we are able to actually get into the space. It can be a forest space. We wear the headset and automatically we are there, and we can have different type of maybe experiences in places that we cannot access for some reason if we are in a remote place, or we can even meet with people if we are in remote places, which makes this a little bit more complex in terms of the design and even the development of these type of experiences. Here is where we have the discussion about users versus humans, and why do we call them users anyways. So at the intersection of all of this shift that is happening, these are important considerations that we have when we're discussing what type of technologies are coming and how we're interacting with these technologies and our responsibility in that. We have a couple of important things to speak here about, which are the XR design factors to consider as best practices. Now we're speaking in 3D, and it involves the first person perspective. So as the person that is inside the experience, now you can choose your own adventure, and this is super, super key when designing for 3D experiences. Giving the user or the persona the right, and when I say right, this can be very relative, but the idea is that the user has enough and freedom to move, to navigate, to choose. This is called agency. So giving agency to the user is absolutely crucial for XR design. And this has some impacts in navigation, spatial awareness, and interactions, which they have to be very, very concisely, very detailed, studied, and seeing how this actually makes sense with the whole narrative or the storytelling to help the user to understand what is going on in the space. And now we come to some of the typical phases of design. Here, for the purposes of this presentation, I'm going to be grouping them in these 4 stages. But for XR design and to explain these tools that we're going to discuss, this is a good compilation of or stages that we can follow. The first one is the research. And the research begins, of course, with a general exploration of a problem. This is absolutely crucial and important, which is beginning with a problem always. What is a problem that we are trying to solve? And then from there, validating this problem through interviews, speaking with these people that actually are going through that problem. And going deep into what are options that have been already considered, why they haven't been implemented, just to try to find information that give us a key of how potentially good this could be and what could be the impact of this solution. And then from there, creating this persona based on this data, which is this profile of who would be the ideal person that's really struggling with this problem that could get the best benefit. For persona, there are a couple of practices that we can use, for example, using the empathy method, where we really take note and go deep into what is what the person saying, what is the person acting like, what is the person doing, what is the person assuming, etc. So coming from this sense of empathy and applying to the description of the persona is very helpful for the design process. And as well as the viability, which is with all of this data, gathering interviews, potential personas, describing or getting to a conclusion of a potential viability, which is still in a hypothesis stage. Then we would move to the ideation phase, where we're going to be getting into another way to express this proposition, which is now using these techniques related with body storming and acting. And this is a little bit now different for the 3D space, because typically we can get brainstorming for ideation for 2D. But now for 3D, we're using something called body storming, which is different. We're going to discuss that. And it makes sense that we come absolutely to mimic the real life in order to create products or experiences that really emulate what is going on in the real world. We're also discussing here storyboarding, low and high fidelity, and how we can come up with good propositions for this stage of the design, and how potentially using these apps or tools can help you with the actual streamlining of the design. And then we'll move on to the concept development with prototyping, which is getting into options there available for you to create a very good product concept that really is using the best technology, and it's helping you to make the process efficient, and that really is backed up by research and all the design process that have taken place with all the stages, making sure that everything is going to be ergonomic, safe, that the person is going to actually feel good, comfortable, and that the sense of presence is going to be assured in the experience. So beginning with the research phase, we have this problem definition where We're speaking here about the definition of the persona. As I mentioned previously, we go through interviews asking the users, potential users, the problem definition, the motivations, and what could be potential issues with using that, like assessing some risks. As I mentioned, this is a hypothesis phase, but this is a very, very important stage of the design where all of this raw data is going to be fed into the next stage in order to make sure that all the features that are going to be there inside this experience are really designed from the beginning for mitigating the problem that we have previously researched. So this is all about assessing feasibility. Then moving on to the ideation, we have this body storming acting phase where it is a very fun and physical actually tool that we use to emulate what is going on in the real world. And it seems so simple, it seems so obvious, but it actually is the best flow that we can have coming from a real world and then trying to create another digital world that for some might look similar to this one, but at least it has, even if it's not the same, at least it has to have certain minimum requirements in terms of safety, ergonomics, comfort, presence, etc. So that's why even if it's something that it doesn't exist in the real world, it has to still consider the physical or human body as a reference. And body storming is all about creating this potential environment that we are looking for in terms of experience or solution, and acting up like how it would be if we were having, if everything that we were seeing were that immersive environment or solution. So in that sense, we would use different type of crafting materials, maybe props, maybe things that can help us emulate that, and we hopefully can have a more clarity about what are the distances that need to happen, why are we creating the storytelling in certain ways on the narrative, and how is the flow of the user in the space, where does he or she needs to go to, and how all of this is going to be playing together in order to create a consistent product or experience. And the idea of this is modeling similar movements and navigation in the space. That is very important when we are designing for example, for the movements that we do, teleportation or locomotion. How are we using it, and how seamless the experience is for someone who has never experienced virtual reality or an immersive technology before. So that's why it is super, super important to use body storming and emulating this group of experiences in a way that is simple and very, very natural for someone who has never been in this space, as closer as it is in the real world, as natural, the better. And as tools, some of the tools that we have, the uses of space, as we mentioned, subjecting the body to ideate and make solutions, and create and iterate, and assess levels of presence and immersion all the time. Is this breaking presence? Is this making sense? Does it make sense in the real world, etc.? So here, this is one of the examples. It seems a very obvious tool, like not like the app that we're thinking about, but this is where it all begins in order to create something that has a good foundation and that has been studied and that has been really emulated correctly in the real world in order to prevent potential breaches in design or even problems later on. So here we see from these sources from Microsoft, and this is the process for a design for mixed reality, actually for the HoloLens. And we see this team of engineers, designers, artists coming together in a group and performing this body storming and acting. And this is all about using these crafting materials, using props, using all of these sorts of materials that can emulate as close as possible this ideation and storming that is happening in order to come closer to a potential good concept for the app that considers all the elements that we just mentioned. Then we move to storyboarding. So we come from this first experience with ideating a potential concept. Now moving into a storyboarding. So we gather data from every stage and we feed onto the next one to getting closer and closer to a more refined product. Storyboarding is about the same technique that was used in the filmmaking industry, where in order to showcase how a final product could look like in terms of a movie or a trailer, etc., how it would look in terms of a storyboard, which is a flow. It's like the general flow of how the interaction could be. We have low fidelity and high fidelity, of course. For low fidelity, we have the typical use of a pen and paper, and we are able to make this sketch, pretty much a sketch, with the typical grid of maybe 3 by 3 squares, where we just use each to represent the flow of how the user would be going through different experiences in the space. But this is all about drawing and sketching. So this is the low fidelity, feels very, getting closer to a concept. And then moving on to high fidelity, we use 3D spaces to represent the experience and 3D interactions in VR, MR, AR to represent the actual creation that we're making. So in order to study the tools, we can start seeing here how it could look like. It is just as creating any other sketch. It has the flow, in this case, for example, a user. As it gets closer, as it reaches with the hand, it triggers an experience. And then it is like an experience of sort of like a museum, showcase, etc. that triggers another presentation type of experience. And also we see at the bottom another one, which, as I mentioned, for HoloLens or this type of mixed reality devices, it's sort of like a showcase of how potentially a structure, a building, or a landscape could look like. And this is showing there, for example, other interested people and how they could actually also interact with this experience. And moving on to this type of workflows, how it could look like in the high fidelity tools, we are bringing the first one, which is ShapesXR. ShapesXR is a tool that is available on the Oculus Store, and it is very, very useful for actually creating, for these stages of ideation, design, prototyping, and immersive presentations. Recently, I was able to see the last inclusion that they made about immersive presentations, and I can say that this is the future of presentations. Right now you are seeing me here through a 2D video, but absolutely, I am absolutely sure in the future we're gonna see immersive presentations where you're not gonna be interacting through a screen, but actually you're gonna see me in your living room or in your office, and I'll be speaking there and with 3D models beside me in a immersive space. So this is something that really I recommend to try. In Shapes XR you can upload different type of files like OBJ, PNG, Figma even, and XD. Adobe have acquired Figma, so it is even easier that all of these type of inputs for design, wireframes, etc. can be uploaded. And also in Shapes XR, also you can create due to certain templates that they have wireframes in order to make the process even faster for the creation of certain UIs that you might want to have. As well as outputs, we have 3D spaces. You can download the 3D space, upload it directly through Unity, which is absolutely effective or efficient for the process of design. Since you already have something that is already created in 3D, you can even fine-tune it more and refine it in Unity in order to produce a closer end to a final product. Also 2D images as the design pitch deck, web viewer, it can be checked by other team members through the web if they don't have access to the headset. They can also collaborate remotely, and this is one of the greatest features of this app, where we can come together as designers, creators, developers, and any other professions working and creating this 3D space and make changes, make reviews, write notes, and make improvements and iterations to the design. And of course, the 3D models can also go directly to other 3D tools or engines. So this is an example of how it looks like, all sorts of things. It can be simulated, certain interactions, what happens if the user touches the screen or the buttons or presses something, etc. All of these can be created, as well as different type of spaces with more and more detail. In concept development, we're speaking about prototyping, so getting even closer to this prototype. We can also here explore other type of apps, but Shapes XR is one that continues to be useful for prototyping. Here we are using an engine. We're incorporating the process an engine because it makes the process like closer to the final product, and also it makes the process of a higher quality. So this is an example of how people enter the app, starts creating all the type of things that can be created there. As we can see, there is a user interface there, and also, as we mentioned, the creation of a surrounding where interactions can be also triggered there. Another app that I really love is called Gravity Sketch. And while Shapes XR can be used for these maybe digital experiences, apps, 3D experiences or immersive experiences, I believe Gravity Sketch has a lot of strength for product design. So if you're a furniture designer, interior designer, if you are a product designer from the automobile or maybe from even retail, etc., there is a lot of potential with Gravity Sketch, because Gravity Sketch has a lot of tools available that allow for a little bit more advanced 3D modeling. And this is a tool that has been explored a lot by engineers, product designers, etc. I'm very glad that we now have this tool available. I mean, we've had it for a couple of years, but with more people is using it and learning about it, incorporating it in their design process. And also we have Archeo, which is an app that allows you to prototype these type of spaces like buildings, cities, apartments, etc. I see a lot of strength of Archeo in the prototyping for real estate, for architecture, for interior design as well. And so it has a lot of advantages, as for example using mixed reality in order to overlay your own space and be able to see how the changes could look like even in your own, combining virtual with real. So we're seeing here the use of pass-through, which is mixed reality. The person that is making the demo, his name is Johan, and I interviewed him for the XR Magazine podcast. I think that the work they are doing at Archeo is absolutely amazing in terms of improving the app more and more with more tools in order to make the flows easier for example, bringing files from Revit or from Rhino, which are typical software that is used in architecture. So as you can see, he is overlaying virtual with real in order to see how these changes might look like, and this is absolutely more advanced, and it's easier to now iterate and prototype fast and create without a lot of delays or complications as we used to have before. So this is absolutely a great tool for this purpose. We also, from Archeo, there is also this option of exporting directly to Unity through one of the plugins, as well as ShapesXR. So this is good because in Unity also, if you don't want to begin with one of these apps, you can also begin with ProBuilder if it's part of what you're looking for. It depends on what is your project. But if it is about gray boxing and something that involves more about world building, etc., ProBuilder can be a good in start. But even if you don't use ProBuilder and directly bring from these 3D apps, Unity is gonna help a lot in refining and further improving the quality of the final product. And also we have Unreal Engine, which is another great option for bringing it in order to improve even more the graphics, the final product, for world building, for game design. Both are great, and they both have their strengths. There is not a particular preference. I've been using Unity, but Unreal Engine is also super great. So the idea of bringing forward all these apps is that, and in the way that we have shown here, is because this is the most streamlined way, and it's the highest quality one that you can end up for a prototype and for a final product. So we're bringing you the best, like the cutting edge tools available in order to create. So there is a caveat though, which is that using these tools are, as back in the years we were starting to use other type of tools like Blender, it has a steep curve. we have to wear the headset, start learning, sort of like when we used to learn commands, now we learn how to use the controllers and how to create all of these, how to use properly all of these tools in order to iterate fast and really improve the time for creation. But it is possible once that stage has been crossed, and as anything else, it is about practice. The best of the tools are pretty much comprised in the possibility of collaboration and the possibility of iterations, fast iterations, and fast creation for the prototypes. So I'm gonna end the presentation by saying the most important thing in the design is always maintaining the sense of presence, which is the combination of these immersion plus grounding, plausibility, illusion, which means if the person feels as in the real world, then it is successful in terms of the comfort and the way that the sense of safety and the sense of familiarity that can be replicated with doing a process that have followed the same patterns that as everything works in the real world. So this has been absolutely amazing. I feel super glad that we were able to discuss here today about the best apps that are right now available and tools for XR design. The first ones seem too simple, but are the best ones, I promise you. And the other apps that I just showcased is the best that is out there right now for these three cases, whether it is for digital design, for world building, for architecture, engineering, and for product design. You have good options here. I'm so grateful that you took the time to join. Absolutely, we have to keep the connection going because this is the purpose of being here, all each other, helping each other and learning from each other. Please follow me at Diana OLYNICK in all social media. I'll follow back and let's start the conversation. I love you so much, and I hope that you have a great day. Thank you for being here.